Chinese aggression and expansionist desires have put the world on the brink of a global war. A war which, if it starts, is bound to spiral out of anybody's control. A war which would be the handiwork of a handful of people in the Chinese Communist Party whose seeds were sown when Mao Zedong came to power. China has the largest number of neighbors, 14, sharing its 22,000 kilometers land borders and territorial or maritime disputes with almost all of them. In fact, all these neighbors of China have something in common that the dragon has its eyes on. And guess what? It's territory. More and more of it. Today, our endeavor is to understand the geography of actual ancient China and examine it in light of its present-day expansionist ambitions. Let's commence from 4000 BC to 1800 BC as to how ancient China looked. China, as we know, is bounded by the Gobi Desert in the north, dense jungles in the south, while the east and the west are bounded by formidable mountains and the sea. The ancient Chinese civilization developed around the floodplains of the Yellow River in the north and the Yangtze River in the south. Major early prehistoric cultures were centered around the middle and the lower Yellow River Valley. In the Yangtze region, wheat rice cultivation used to predominate, while primarily the people were hunters and gatherers. 1500 BC to 1200 BC, period of the Shang dynasty. The Shang dynasty was the earliest ruling dynasty of China to be established in the Yellow River Valley. Under the Shang dynasty, there were 12 kings and 8 generations. The greatest of them was Anyang. The first real cities of ancient East Asia with tens of thousands of inhabitants appeared here. Although the kings of the Shang state probably exercised direct rule over only a part of the region, however, their influence was over a much wider area of northern and central part of East Asia through subordinate lords and tribal chiefs. 1200 BC to 1000 BC. By this time, along the banks of the Wei River, the Zhou dynasty grew steadily as a nominal vassal state of Shang. Around 1046 BC, the Zhou became powerful enough to cross the Wei River and defeat the Shang and thus established the Zhou dynasty. The expanded Zhou state had an eastern capital city at Luoyang to administer the eastern parts and a central main capital city at Fenghao for the rest of the state. As a result, this was a crucial period for the expansion of the ancient Chinese civilization. 700 BC to 500 BC. This was the period when the capital of Zhou was moved back to Luoyang after the decline of Western Zhou and was renamed as Eastern Zhou, also known as the Spring and Autumn period. The many fiefs into which earlier Zhou state was divided had been involved in bitter fights through a process of warfare and annexation, and were gradually absorbed into a few larger political units. These could now fairly be called states in their own rights. 300 BC to 200 BC, also known as the period of the 7 warring states. During this period, states declared independence from the Zhou state, and finally there were 7 warring states: Qin, Chu, Han, Shao, Wei, Yan, and Qi. Between 247 and 221 BC, Qin had emerged as one of the most powerful of the 7 warring states. In 230 BC, Ying Zheng, the king of Qin, unleashed the final campaigns of the warring states period, setting out to conquer the remaining states one by one. Following the fall of Qi in 221 BC, China was unified under Qin control. Ying Zheng declared himself Qin Shi Huang, meaning first emperor of Qin, and established the Qin dynasty. Some historians believe it to be the actual ancient China. It could be seen from the comparison map that ancient China under Qin was just about 1/4 of the present People's Republic of China. 30 BC, the Han dynasty emperors expanded their empire's borders on all fronts. Growing tensions between the Han Empire and some powerful chieftains in Korea led to Wudi invading the peninsula and setting up 4 provinces there. The Han Empire took up the task of conquering today's southern China from the Qin rulers, and Wudi completed it by pushing the empire's borders as far south as northern Vietnam and into the modern province of Yunnan. It was during this period that Xiongnu tribes in Central Asia had become united. The Xiongnu Confederation expanded in all directions, and in doing so dislodged a powerful tribe called the Yuezhi to their west, who then migrated southwestwards, where they were so later play a major role in Indian and Afghan history as the Kushans. After the Yuezhis were pushed out, the Xiongnu Confederation controlled areas from Siberia, Inner Mongolia, Gansu, and Xinjiang. Well, that was an additional information. Coming back to the expansion of ancient China, the Chinese had a peace accord with the Xiongnu, which didn't last long. And finally, under the Han Emperor Wudi, the Chinese decided to return to a military policy. And this time launched a series of successful campaigns which took their armies far into Central Asia. The Xiongnu were defeated repeatedly, and the Han state thus expanded till the Tarim Basin or the modern-day Xinjiang. 200 CE to 500 CE, the Han dynasty, whose empire marked the high point of ancient Chinese history, fell in 220 CE during the rule of Emperor Xian. In the north, the barbarian tribal aristocracies and the Chinese landowning class gradually merged to form the Northern Wei Empire. The Northern Wei Empire was ruled by people of Mongol origin and who ruled northern China since their conquest in 425 to 435 CE. The southern Sung Empire was faction-ridden and unstable, dominated by a small group of wealthy landowners. 500 CE to 750 CE, the Northern Wei Kingdom of northern China split into two rival states in 534 CE. One of them, the northern Zhou, had conquered the other by 577 CE and began the conquest of the south. In 581 CE, however, a northern Zhou general, Yang Xian, seized power and founded the Sui dynasty. He completed the conquest of the south and so reunified China once again. Shortly afterwards, by 620 CE, Tang dynasty came to power after a brief civil war, which further consolidated the unified China. 750 CE to 1000 CE, the later Tang emperors were unable to assert the same degree of control over the empire as their predecessors had done, and the centralized rule of the early Tang was never fully restored. China, once unified, was once again divided into the Lian Empire to the north, Western Xia Empire to the west, and Song Empire in the center and the south. Soon after, a major invasion by the Jurchen, a people from Central Asia, conquered the entire north of China, and a major portion of the northern Song thus formed the Jin Empire. 1000 CE to 1500 CE. This was a period of great upheaval in the Chinese history. The Mongols from Central Asia conquered northern China in the 1230s, annexing it to their empire, which stretched as far west as the Middle East and, within a few years, Russia. Southern China fell to them in the 1270s. The Mongol Emperor Kublai Khan reigned from 1260 to 1294, presented himself as a legitimate Chinese ruler of the Yuan dynasty. After Kublai Khan, the Mongols weakened and their vast empire fragmented into separate states. Yuan dynasty was one of these. From the 1330s, an increasing number of rebellions culminated in the expulsion of the Mongols from China. 1500 CE to 1800 CE. In 1717, the Zungas who controlled Zungaria and the Tarim Basin, present-day Xinjiang, attacked and conquered Tibet, but they were driven out a year later by the Qing. In 1755, Qing China took advantage of a Zungar civil war to conquer Zungaria and destroyed the Zungas as a people. The destruction of the Zungas led to the Qing conquest of Mongolia, Tibet, and the creation of Xinjiang as a political administrative unit. 1800 CE to 2000 CE. It was during this period that tensions over trade between China and Britain, particularly over the role of British merchants in bringing illegal opium into the country, led to the outbreak of the First Opium War, which was from 1839 to 1842, which resulted in the Chinese being forced into signing the Treaty of Nanking, which led to establishment of Hong Kong as an outpost of the British Empire. In 1894-95, a war with Japan ended in humiliating defeat for China. Japan gained Taiwan and other territories. After the Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 1945, the struggle between the communists led by Mao Zedong and the Kuomintang under Chiang Kai-shek resumed. By 1949, the communists had control of all China except for Taiwan, to which the Kuomintang had fled. The communists proclaimed the formation of the People's Republic of China. So we see how China has grown up from the times of the 7 warring states to the present-day People's Republic of China. Considering the discussion so far, it emanates that Xinjiang, or the erstwhile Zungaria and Tarim Basin, was inhabited by the Yuzis and the Xiongnu, who were of Mongol origin and were never part of ancient China till Han Emperor Wudi annexed it. Tibet was always an independent and autonomous region and never part of China until Qing dynasty annexed it in 1755 in the pretext of liberating it from Zungas, which became the basis for Chinese claims on Tibet since then. China's disputes with the Central Asian countries bears from the fact that the Han dynasty had expanded the borders till Central Asia. Inner Mongolia was annexed in 1755 when Qing defeated the Zungas, which otherwise was never a part of ancient China. Ancient China was much lesser in span than the present geographic spread of the PRC. If history of expansion would have been the reason enough to lay claims on territories, then Mongolia should rightfully claim half of the world, including all of China. It is evident that ancient China was much smaller than the present area occupied by the People's Republic of China. Chinese have been expansionists and have a habit of tweaking history to suit their claims. China seems to have the same belief as Nazi Germany had, and that was of Lebensraum, which translates into living space or the territory believed to be necessary for national existence or economic self-sufficiency. It is high time that China is stopped from expanding and stealing others' land, and in fact it is time that it gives back Tibet, Xinjiang and Inner Mongolia to those people whom they actually belong. Well viewers, if you liked our content, please like, share and subscribe our channel. We would also be happy for suggestions or comments that you may have. A little gesture from your side goes a long way in keeping us motivated.